Hi, Shaundra. Welcome to Zen One Podcast.
Hi, Tiger. Thanks for having me.
Of course, this is a very interesting topic, and it's been RCM all over my LinkedIn feed. And I just want to dive in. What is RCM?
Revenue cycle management. So it's essentially the machine that keeps the financial piece of a practice running through the process of insurance claims and all of your cash management and cash flow with that.
I hope it doesn't sound wrong. It sounds more like a DSO term.
Well, and that's, we're in an industry now where DSOs have gone through the roof, right? They're everywhere. It's maybe a DSO term because they have formalized so many things that I think have become more commonplace lingo and terminology. I do think that it's probably become more of like a formal term now rather than, 20 years ago. It was like, did you send the insurance claims?
Right, right. So, take me back to 20 years ago. What would this be called? Like, what this profession, and now your whole business is around this thing. What would that look like?
Just simple dental billing, patient billing, and then insurance verification. And just to really keep it simple terms, that's what we do.
Got it. And so what happened over the last maybe 10, 15 years with the complexity of RCM? And I don't think DSOs would come up with a three-letter acronym just for fun, right? Like, I mean, they do this once in a while, but this seems like an important one. But I'm trying to see, maybe there was some kind of complexity around this subject that forced people to think about it even more.
Yeah, I do think that it's become more of a business of dentistry than just a component of like the front office. I think that 20 years ago, it was less about business, right? It was, I'm here to do dentistry. I want to cut teeth. I want to take care of my patients. I want to employ some people at the front desk that I'm able to do that with. And we go from there. And dentists have become very, very intuitive business owners, hopefully, right? If they're surviving and they are thriving, they're in tune with their business, or they're in tune with people who know their business and can help them. And I think it's both sides of that. Because I think DSOs have become such a big part of the dental world, it has put pressure on the small private practices to really kind of pay attention, right? And so they're saying, okay, well, I don't want to go DSO. I want to stay private practice. I appreciate that. I'm an entrepreneur. I want everybody that can stay in business for themselves to do that and wants to do that.
Stay private.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but what I do think has happened is that we've had some really smart dental savvy, business savvy dentists that say, I want to stay private practice, but I need to know how this works. And ultimately, I think that they've tuned into the fact that this is not just a sending a claim and hope that it comes back paid. This is a major portion of how they're earning their income. And so I think it's more important than just a leave it at the front desk and Janice will send your claim out. It's a business component now.
Interesting. Why do you think people still take, I mean, to me, it sounds like it's a major piece of your business, right? Getting paid. I guess I have two questions there, but I'll start with one. Why do you think people don't take it seriously? The private offices.
They just don't know. They don't know. 9 times out of 10, if I talk to a dentist, they're almost always going to question me in return when I ask them a question. So I'll say, well, what was your insurance collections last month? I don't know. Where would I find that? Right? That's normal. And so I think that
You mean that's not normal? Sorry to interrupt you. That's common, but it's not normal.
Common. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, no, that's great. It is common, not normal. Not healthy, not a good idea, but very common. So I think, and now I've totally forgotten what you said.
I'm sorry. I do this all the time, Sean. It's like one of my issues. Like I interrupt. We were talking about like why people don't take it seriously. Like you say when you ask the doctors like why they.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I just think that it's more of like it's out of sight, out of mind. It's just not something that they're familiar with. I told a doctor the other day, it's more about you don't know what you don't know. I don't know dentistry in the way that they know dentistry. I know dentistry from insurance and numbers. And so I think that they don't take it seriously because they just don't know that it is a major component. And And ultimately, they're tied into wanting to run a practice, but there's so many moving pieces, right? That how do you spend full time 30 to 40 hours in the chair with patients and then still try to have the time to balance out the rest of your life plus run a business? A business is a full-time role in itself. So I really just strongly believe that it's primarily not intentional. They just want things to run. They want things to work. I expect that if I plug the person into the job that does the job, that things will operate the way that this person says that they should. So I just think that there's a lot of trust within that and a lot of assumptions that things are happening until they're 6 months down the road and they go, uh-oh, how come I don't have any money to pay my bills this month like I did the last few months? Not something's changed, something's shifted. So I think it's just an awareness.
And so how do they find it? Like, how do they know, like what, go to practice management software and what do you look at?
Yeah, so if you're a dentist that's really in tune with your business, you know your numbers. You can jump into your practice management software and you can dig through and you can say, "Oh, it looks like our claims are being submitted like they're supposed to. It looks like they're being followed up with consistently. It looks like the payments are being posted correctly and allocated correctly." That's a big problem for a lot of practices because obviously a lot of them are paying, especially if they have an associate or a hygienist that's paid on production. It's extremely important that those payments are posted accurately and allocated accurately. But if they're savvy with that, they can jump into their practice management software and find all of that information and make sure. What I find is that the dentists that are super business savvy and they know how to find that information, they don't necessarily want to have to go do the admin HR side of it and say, "Hey, Janice, can you tell me why these aren't happening?" They don't want to do that. They just want to cut teeth and they want to build relationships with their patients and they want to pay a bill that says, "I am paying for a service that gets done the way that I am told and expect that it should." And it's that simple, right? Like they don't have an entire lab in their dental practice because that's a whole other business that they have to try and figure out, right? And it's not their passion or their expertise. Some of them it is, right? But in general dentistry, private practice, they don't have that in there. They've outsourced that to a lab company. Ours is very similar. It's a lot easier to write a check for an invoice for a service at the end of the month than it is to pay the payroll taxes and make sure that everybody showed up on time. And you're, having to deal with a lot of the HR side of things, which it's a big piece of it. It's a big component of making sure that those things are happening.
But just to clarify, you described a lot of things, but the HR and paying the invoice is not part of RCM.
No, you're right. It's not, except that it is because they have hired somebody. They have hired
Do
an
the work
employee
to
to do
run
the
the
work,
billing.
to run the billing, and they have to trust that that's happening, right? Unless they know and then they can verify that it's happening and all of the little pieces are being followed up on, then they have to just trust that the person that they've hired at the front desk knows what they're doing unless they're able to review it themselves. And even when they're able to review it themselves, they don't necessarily know all the pieces to kind of the red flags that would pop up. So I think that's probably a big part of it is there's not enough hours in the day to ensure that your front office team, and you're hiring somebody who's got an incredible amount of trust in the practice. That is a financial piece, but you're also holding their livelihood in your hand. You have an employee. An employee is an expense item. It is, and at the end of the day, they can be very valuable, and then they can also cost the practice more money if they're not holding up what we ask them to do.
Okay. So let's try to identify a little bit of the boundaries because I'm also a little not lost from what you described, but just in general, I'm a lost person. But like so you're gonna hire somebody that's their entire job is gonna be billing, right? So like insurance claims in
Yeah.
the office, right? So hypothetically, like traditionally, you get somebody that's their job. So a patient comes in, they do the verification, then they know the portions that they're going to get paid, then they present to the patients, then yada, 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 and then it gets submitted to the insurance. So, and that's typically not an office manager, right? It's the billing person that sits in the office to do the work. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it can be both. I mean, it depends on the makeup of the practice. You know, some small private practices are going to have an office manager that runs the show up front, and that's it, right? So I think it just depends on the makeup of the practice. A larger private practice is probably going to have somebody dedicated to just insurance, whether that's all of it, billing and following up on claims, or if that's separated depending on how large the business
Yeah.
is.
Chandra, I think the one question that most people have when I talk to them about insurance, and it's not my space, right? Like I'm in the back of the office. That's I think our expertise. The front is kind of difficult. I think the big question is like, why should we even do this? Like, why should we even be a person or a service? Like, why there's no software that I just go in and it does it all? Like, isn't it that simple?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And AI has made huge strides in this area, and we use that as a tool in our business, but it's just not where it needs to be able to catch those human errors and to be able to see red flags and know when to pick up the phone. And unfortunately, insurance companies, while they are also heavily invested in AI and getting things automated, they're also not at a point of where these things are possible. There's a reason that there are dental consultants that are, or excuse me, retired dentists that are paid as consultants to review claims, because a computer can't do that yet, right? And I say yet, but really truthfully, there's just so many facets. It would be the same thing as assuming a dentist could be produced out of AI to go work, to do the actual work. And we're not there yet. So I do think that there's capabilities out there to use AI as a tool, but we're not at a point where you can take a human out of this. This is somebody who needs to actually physically watch over this piece of the practice on a daily basis and pick up that phone and say, hey, insurance company, what's going on? Those conversations don't happen. The claim doesn't get paid or moved forward. The dentist is losing money.
Is it across the board all insurance companies, or is there some specific ones that starts with a D and ends with A that is the most troubling for dentists? Like, I mean, without saying the names, but like,
Right.
it seems like why would you even need to follow up? You submit the claim, you describe what you did, right? Now you have AI in the office with like Pearl or Overjet to submit it with the claim to say, here's, like AI found this stuff. And like, you just should expect the check or the transfer back into your bank account. Like, what is the complexity?
Mm-hmm. So it can be as simple as, and this is a known thing, there are insurance companies out there that have their systems set up automatically, and we won't name them, but to just
With the
follow.
D.
Yeah, well, maybe might start
Okay.
with them too. They all do it, honestly.
Okay.
But they have their AI in place, and it basically kicks out the 10th claim every time. So they come in, oops, we didn't get that one. It kicked out, or it rejects it, doesn't auto adjudicate it, and rejects the claim. Well, if nobody's looking for that, and a lot of times that's what it is, it's as simple as it just didn't make it through. It didn't get through the pearly gates into the insurance company to be paid. And that may be their fault, or it may be the clearinghouse. It doesn't matter. It's not going to get paid unless somebody calls and says, why am I not being paid? What do you need to make this happen? So it's really more than just, I wish I could click a button. That'd be great, right? Like, that would be great if you could just click a button and expect that the outcome would be exactly what you want to have happen every time.
Even if it's not the outcome is exactly what you wanted to happen, the outcome could be like, I click the button, it gets rejected, it's clear, it's like you resubmit it, through one place and then just add more information or whatever, and gets reviewed. And like, but I feel like there's like an exchange, right? So you have a practice management software, then you have an exchange platform, right? So where I guess something gets routed to the insurance companies and electronically is being submitted, then they write a check, and I assume it's a check for like 5 or 10 different patients, right? And then you get that check and you have to reconcile it with everybody's procedures. Am I correct, or am I overcomplicating?
Yeah, no, you're right on.
So you get a check for like 6,454.28, and then you look at it as like, okay, and then I have my practice management software, and now you have to say that equals 4 patients and 7 fillings that I did, right?
Yes, exactly. And then guess what? That one patient number 5, he had 5 fillings done, but they only paid for 2. Well, how come? Now we got to go investigate, right? So it's not as simple as I did the work, now just pay me. And unfortunately, we live in a world where dental insurance and insurance in general is still a crutch for a lot of patients. They feel like I'm paying for this, I should have this benefit, right? But there's a lot of education that can come through the office to educate patients on their insurance just being a benefit. I could go on and on about that. I mean, I certainly could sell the business of dentistry to a patient, but there's a lot of internal communication that needs to happen with the patient. And especially when it comes to selling that treatment and sidestep, that's why I feel like this is such an important piece of outsourcing it, because it is something that is very distracting as a process. You have to stay on task and focused to get through each one of them. But because it's distracting, it can be very difficult for somebody who's trying to also engage with patients and sell treatment, propose and plan treatment, and maybe schedule them or answer the phones or, whatever it is that they're doing, face-to-face engagement with a patient. That's important. That's priority, right? Like we're always taught when you're engaging with anybody, what's your competing priority? The phone's ringing, you have somebody in front of you, what are you going to do? You're going to talk to the person in front of you. You better, right? Like that should be. If you don't, you're probably not going to be working there for very much longer. So those competing priorities become a challenge when there's still a whole other job over here to do, and it's not a fun job. There's nothing sexy about dental insurance. Like there's just not. It's
But you make it sounded like.
Oh, good. Sold. It's a function that has to happen in order to keep the whole practice running smoothly so that you can see another patient.
And
again,
get paid.
Say again.
And get paid.
And get paid. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's all they want, right?
Yeah, they want a lot more than that. But I think I would be paranoid if I would be a dentist. If I wouldn't have the proper system in place, knowing that I saw 5 patients today, or 6 or 7 or 20, whatever the number is, and I did the work. These are my procedures. I can go to a practice management software and see exactly what we did. And there's going to be a daily report. And then if I wouldn't have a clear reporting back to me to say, this procedure here got paid, and this is the claim number, or this is procedure with this insurance didn't get paid. Like, is there anything like that people look at on a daily basis, like a dashboard?
There should.
Okay. Is it in part of practice management? Like, does the practice management sort of reconciles the claims back into the PMS to say, like, yes, we get paid?
Yes. Every single practice management software should have an entire list of all of those claims that are outstanding. And of those claims, they should be able to be reviewed in buckets. This bucket's over 30 days. This bucket's over 60, and so on. Any doctor who's on top of their practice should never see anything over 60 days. So if they are actively on top of it and they are seeing a large amount of claims or dollars over 60 days, somebody is not actively working on that. That's a huge red flag. That would be something that, as a dentist and listening to this, I would immediately go check. I know my practice management software. I'm going to go look and see what kind of claims we have outstanding. So yes, they absolutely can. Do they take the time? Do they want to take the time? Not necessarily. And those are where I want to come in and help. There's plenty of opportunities for a dentist who wants to run their own. In fact, I have a meeting with one next week who just wants me to show him an overview of his practice management software, and so that he can have an idea, 20,000 foot level of how can I make sure that my team is doing what they say they're doing or need to be doing. And so I'm helping him in that way. However, it may turn into something else where he's like, you know what? I don't want to have to look at this every day and make sure that these boxes are getting checked. I just want to focus on my patients. No.
I don't think you should be in business then.
Isn't that the common truth?
If you don't want to look at the numbers, if you don't want to look at your revenue, this affects everything. Like if it affects your hiring, it affects you staying in business. Like I get it that dentistry has allowed lousy management. And I'm not saying in any like negative way, but like you don't have to be McDonald's level
Mm-hmm.
regional manager type person to run a dental practice. Like dental practice by nature allows a lot of lousiness. But I feel like it's going away. Like if you want to be successful, it's not that difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to look at the numbers. You need to be business savvy. And business, like all these terms are actually, I don't like to use because they don't mean anything. Like what does it mean business savvy? But like in the morning huddle, then you look at the numbers. What are the top 5 numbers? It's in a practice management software. But I want to go back here for a second. If we take an average $1 million practice, how many claims over 60 days would be a red flag for you?
If they're properly running their RCM, 1.
Okay. How many claims over 30 days is a red flag for you?
$1 million practice, I'd say it would be fine to have 30 or more, but they better have a clear, concise, updated note that somebody has already called and followed up on that within the last week.
So 30 claims over 30 days.
You might, because of that 30-day bucket gets a little messy, and it also can depend on the time of year because insurance companies will delay at certain points.
Yeah, but just on general, like if somebody looks at it.
I don't think I have a whole lot of red flags in 30 days. It's really just at that point going, so when was the last time somebody looked at that? Because I don't want it to get past 60 days. We need to attack that and get it paid way before it hits 60 days. The likelihood of getting things paid, and typically those claims that go over 60 days are bigger ticket items. They're going to be larger producing items, and so they're even more important usually to follow up on.
What is the most common rejection on a claim that you've seen? Like what is the, like just in general, like why do claims get rejected in general?
Sure. Yeah, it can literally be anything from the patient information wasn't correct going out the door to it didn't have an attachment that it needed. Maybe they needed an x-ray or a perio chart. They didn't get it. It could be as simple as the group number. It literally, there's a lot of reasons and they're all common. There's probably 10 things that happen all the time, and it's as simple as clean in and clean out. And so we focus on that claim going out cleanly the very first time. That means we're checking to make sure that all of the information that's needed to go on that claim or along with those procedures is there and submitted on the initial run. That's going to produce what we're looking for. That's going to produce that check to come back, that claim to come back paid as quickly as possible rather than delaying it for any reason and affecting that cash flow of the doctor.
So there's a bucket, let's call them 10 reasonable denials, right? Name, group number, this and that. Boy, is there a second bucket that's like, you look at it and you're like, boy, that's silly.
Yeah. They're all silly to me. They're like, a lot of them, my favorites are always the ones that challenge the dentist. They're, oh, well, there's definitely no decay there, so we're going to deny this. And, you look at the dentist and of course they're like, come on, I'm not cutting teeth for fun. And at least the ones I work with are all very amazing, ethical dentists, right? Like we won't go there, but those are my people. I like those people.
Yeah.
And so it's always comical when I have to go to one of my dentists and say, hey, they don't think you should have done this. What do you want to do? And it's always, a dance back and forth. And usually I get, several colorful words out of the dentist.
Obviously.
And they're like, come on, what do you mean? Of course I did this because it was needed. And so we write up a really beautiful argument and send it back their way and get that claim paid. But the funny ones to me are always that you're getting some, like, to be honest, it's not a dentist sitting there reviewing claims. If it's just not. And it's either going to be automated, or if it's a larger claim and it is being humanly reviewed, it's not a dentist. So to say that this doctor didn't know what they were talking about when they reviewed the x-rays and made a decision to, maybe prep a crown is silly to me. Those are always my favorite. And those are my favorite to get paid because the doctors are like, yeah, stick it to the man.
Yeah, I have two questions here actually. One is, if you get this kind of pushback, why, and I hope it doesn't sound wrong, why do you even go back to the doctors to like, hey, what do you want to do next, versus just like automatically
Yeah.
pushing back on them?
No, 100%. And we do. We don't, when I say I go to the doctors, like one of them I think of right now, I bring it to her because she thinks it's comical and it gives her information for how she can counteract it next time. Maybe she wanted to like write a narrative differently, or her clinical note maybe wasn't as aggressive as she wanted it to be to overcome that. So it's helpful for me to share with her, and she appreciates that. And I have some dentists that are like, I don't care, just get it paid. I don't want to know anything. And I tend to work with a lot of dentists like that. They don't want to know. They just want to see the money come back to the bank.
I think that's another problem too, is like, the reason I think I asked this question is, if you would be doing this for me, of course I would love to know, because then the most right now, the most popular conversation among private dentists is, who are we going to drop?
Mm-hmm.
So by you telling me who's pushing back, I'm building the
Mm-hmm.
kind of feedback loop to say, well, the one that starts with a D is first, right? The one that starts with an M is second, and then we'll see who's next. So like, I think that's important to know.
I agree. That goes back to the conversation about some dentists are business minded and some are, I don't know how they're surviving, but they're doing it, right? Like maybe they bought a practice or maybe they built one and they got fortunate enough to land in an area where patients just come to them regardless. But I think it's the difference between the business owner dentist. I have one doctor I can think of right now. He doesn't want to know. I don't care. Just get it paid. And then there's the alternative one I just mentioned, and she wants to know. She wants to know because she wants to fight it. She wants to know which insurance companies are the ones that she should pay attention to. Now, she's totally out of network anyway. Smart private practice move, right? But she still wants their money. She still wants their insurance money to get paid. She fights it because of the patient. She wants to make sure her patients are happy.
So then the second question is, what's your percentage of winning these second times resubmittals?
Oh,
Call
yeah.
it that way.
Yeah, we're really like 98% of claims we win. I've got strong appeal language that I've perfected over 20 years. But also, we're just really diligent with the follow-up. I'm a firm believer fortune is in the follow-up. And that goes with claims, that goes with following up with patients with their treatment plans and scheduling. Like fortune is in the follow-up, right? So when it comes to claims, that's where we live, is fighting those, and we'll do it 2-3 times. And typically speaking, it only takes one, maybe two strong appeals before we get that.
That in the title for the podcast, 99 of the claims we win.
Perfect.
Great. Or the fortune is in the follow-up. Okay. So like just a few minutes ago, you said smart move for the private practice. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah. I see the dichotomy of two different doctors on a regular basis, the business owner mindset, the just want to cut teeth mindset. And the difference between them is truly the way that they view how they're producing and collecting their money. My heart goes out to the doctors that are still diagnosing based on what their insurance plan is what the patient's insurance plan is going to cover. And I'm just, so why is it important to go out of network as a private practice? Because you're going to get paid more. I can show you firsthand dentists that have submitted for years and years their standard fee for a crown and been paid 60% of that fee and then gone out of network, and magically their entire crown is now paid. So it's a scary thing, though. I recognize that for private practice, it's very scary to feel like you're losing that security blanket of a network of patients. But if you are a strong dentist that has good chairside manner, a good relationship ability to build with your patients, they're going to trust you. Patients want to trust their dentist. They want to trust that you have their best interest at heart. And so regardless of whether you're in network or out of network, if you're treating that patient as they need, regardless of what their insurance covers, like you're going to get $1,000 draining that insurance plan for the year, whether they're here or at an in-network dentist, right? So use it and keep them in your own private practice.
I have a question here because this might be something I completely have no clue about. So if you go out of network and I come in and I have one of these wonderful insurances, and do you still accept it, or like
Yeah.
how does it work?
Yeah, so the majority of patients' dental plans, the majority of them does shift dramatically when you go to a DSO, right? Like that's the reason that there's assigned plans. But for a typical private practice who accepts insurance, it doesn't matter if they're in or out of network. You're going to get the same benefit whether you're in or out. So the patient who chooses to stay in network, their doctor that they're going to is going to be limited on procedures to charge only X amount, right? Based on that contract. What I've seen that lead to, and it's ethical, but it's also not my favorite thing, is they'll stack codes. So now you're in network, right, with a dentist who's making 60% of his crown fee. So now he's going to do a buildup and he's going to add on an exam fee and all of these other things because he's got to make up the difference. So as a patient, it's not less expensive out of pocket to go in or out of network. I always tell people, find a dentist that you connect with, that you trust, that you can build a relationship with and bring your family to. Because at the end of the day, as a patient, that's more important. That will also cost you less in the long run than staying in network. So as far as the dentist is concerned, it makes zero difference from the practice standpoint, whether we accept assignment of benefits on an insurance plan or we are actually in network with an insurance plan. Insurance is still going to pay the office for a X amount of portion of whatever this procedure is.
So in layman terms, you're a dentist, you're out of network. Like you dropped all insurances.
Mm-hmm.
I go into you and we do exam and I need a crown. So let's just say a crown is $1,500, hypothetically, right? What happens? Like, do you tell me it's $1,500 and then I go and I bill my insurance or whatever the check I get, I bring to you, or like, what's the technical side of it?
So no, I would recommend and I would recommend keeping it simple for your patient. We will still bill on behalf of the patient out of network. That way, there's really nothing that the patient has to do. I don't want to cause them to have to do more work just because I went out of network. I want nothing to be different for them other than they're probably
going to cover the difference?
Insurance, the patient.
Like the patient, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got that, for number's sake, $1,000 crown, and insurance pays $600. That patient is responsible for that $400. If you're in network and it's a $600 crown that they're going to pay, and you've agreed to not pay more, you're writing off that $400 as a dentist.
Why would you do that?
Because you've agreed in a contract that you will only honor the fees that you've agreed to, and you have to write off that difference, right? So I would much prefer to see a private practice or a doctor say, hey, you need a crown because XYZ, and then they educate the patient on why they need the treatment, right? Patient says yes, we do the work, we send off the claim. The patient is responsible for the difference. They're happy because they don't end up having to go 3 more specialists down the road chasing something that maybe didn't needed to be done at the beginning. I don't know. Ultimately, from a private practice perspective, I don't want to write off 40% of my fee.
Seems like a lot. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I'm in business. As a business owner, if I charge $1,000 for a crown, I charge $1,000 for a crown. It shouldn't be, oh, well, it's raining on Tuesday and you have X insurance company, so now it's only $600. I don't want to do that. I charge $1,000 because I'm in business and I have to pay my staff, pay for my rent or building, pay for all my supplies, my lab, all of those things, right? At the end of the day, if they're not collecting close to 98% of what they're charging, they're not in business to earn money. They're operating like a hobby at that point.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
I would say probably one of the questions as we start wrapping up, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, like personally, I bring to the table is me. I mean, honestly, I know that sounds crazy, but I have for 20 years now built and attracted some of the top talent in this industry. So I kind of feel like I know the people, and whether or not I'm the boots on the ground doing the actual work, I know incredible people that I'm going to team up with to do exactly what any practice needs. So personally, I like to just get creative and talk to whoever the doctor is and say, what is it that you're needing, right? So a lot of times it's one size fits all solution in this industry when there's outsourced dental billing. And that's especially in where I like to focus, which is small private practice. I like to think that it's not a one size fits all solution. Because like we just mentioned, right? We talked about two totally different dentists that operate differently. Well, they're going to need different things. Some want the whole menu and some just want you to pick up the menu and take it over to the other table for them. Right? So I think the biggest thing is I bring a lot of experience and expertise, but I also bring a tremendous network of the very best people in this business that know what they're doing. And I think that that's important for consideration, because the last thing I want to do if I'm a dentist business owner, even who's in tune with my business, is really have to go through the struggle of the HR side of things and the ups and downs of the hiring and the firing and any disciplinary. There's a lot of costs involved with having an employee versus having a service that provides a service for you.
Okay, so just to clarify, meaning that if I have Susan doing all my claims, she can be sick for a week, and that means no claims are submitted for that week, and versus working with you as an outside service for a fee, obviously, but you don't have a sick day. Like every day the claims are being submitted.
That's right.
They're being processed. Okay, got it. And then maybe do you see any limit to what point it doesn't make sense to work with you? So like hypothetically somebody says, at 7 locations or 10 locations, we're big enough to hire our own team and we would like to keep it in-house and maybe work with you as a consultant. So like, I understand with the entry point, but is there a limit where you think it's not a good fit?
No, I haven't found that yet. And the reason that I say no so emphatically is because, again, there's so many different variables for so many different practices that it's hard to say that I think that there's anybody out there that couldn't benefit from even a conversation about whether or not this made sense for them. I have not found a practice yet that in some form or fashion can't benefit from a component of a solution that we offer.
Got it. And so besides just processing the claims, you offer different types of solutions.
Yeah. So we try to take everything off of the shoulders of the front office team that's insurance related. So from the time the patient checks out and that claim is batched, we own that claim all the way through it gets paid and posted into the patient's account. At that point, we also have an additional solution that we can add on where we're also billing the patient and taking over the whole patient AR as well. That component is also oftentimes missed. We have a tendency in private practice to want to be friends with our patients more than ask them for money up front. And so there's obviously a huge piece of following up with patients and getting paid for what insurance didn't pay. So we have that add-on service as well. And then we also have a component of insurance verification that we can add on if that's something that a practice needs. A lot of resources available throughout our company that allow us to kind of be whatever is needed from a practice perspective. And if I don't know it or I don't know how to do it, I guarantee I know somebody who does.
Last question. Do you help people evaluate software options? So let's just say somebody says, for insurance verification, I want to use this, or because there are a bunch of them, I don't know them, but I've heard a lot, and there's some that I shared with you. Like, do you help people evaluate these different platforms as an expert in this field?
Well, it would depend on the platforms before I would consider myself to be an expert on all of them. But it's like I just mentioned, if it's something that I feel like I know this stuff inside, outside, backwards, forwards. I do it in my sleep. So could I help evaluate a potential platform, software platform, to see if it was something that would benefit them and what they're looking for? Absolutely.
And you wouldn't feel like they're trying to, threaten your business.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that. I am a firm believer that there is plenty of food on the table for all of us to be served. And if I meet a dentist who wants, like this gentleman I'm speaking with next week, he wants me to basically give him the 20,000-foot view of my job. I'm obviously not going to train him in an hour how to do all the things that we do and learned for 20 years. But if that's enough for him to say, I think I got it, I'm good, and he feels successful, then we're great. I've made a new friend. He's made a new friend. If he needs anything, I'm here, and vice versa. So I think
Are you
there's
going to charge for that 1 hour?
Say again.
Are you going to charge for that 1 hour?
No.
Why not?
Maybe.
It's a consultation. You should.
No, I am. He's paying.
Then people will value it more.
Yes. No, he's paying
okay,
good. 2 hours.
Okay. Because then he's going to take notes. All right, cool. Shaundra, thank you so much. I don't want to hold you for too long. Where can people find you?
You can find me on my website or on my email. My website is www.stardentalsolutions.net, or you can email me directly at Shaundra@stardentalsolutions.net.
All right, I'll include that in notes. Any parting thoughts you want to share with people?
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you allowing me to have a platform to share. I think the biggest thing is that if you don't know if this is something that your practice needs or could benefit from, call me. Let's have a chat. There's no charge for a discovery call. I'll hang out with you. We can shoot the breeze about Austin or Texas, or maybe it's a totally different state out of Texas altogether. I mean, we can chat.
Yeah, awesome. Shaundra, thank you so much. I appreciate your wisdom, and hopefully people reach out to you.
Thanks, Tiger. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.